If I asked you to nominate the market which had recorded the best long-term capital growth in Australia, what would your answer be? Perhaps Sydney, the capital city with the nation's highest property prices, or Perth, which has had a booming property market lately and has led the nation on price growth for the past couple of years, or maybe Brisbane, which always attracts strong demand from buyers of all sorts, or perhaps regional Queensland, which benefits from internal migrants moving from other parts of Australia and from investors seeking affordability and strong rental yields. The correct answer, however, is none of the above. The market jurisdiction which has led the nation on long-term capital growth is regional Tasmania. Now, this is the outcome of research conducted by Property Investment Professionals of Australia, otherwise known as PIPA, which analysed Australian Bureau of Statistics data on established median dwelling values over 20 years. That's from June 2004 to June 2024. The top location, Tasmania, recorded growth of 233%, while the worst growth in the country was nevertheless 100% over the 2-decade period. In comparison, over the past 20 years, the stock market, as measured by the S&P ASX 200, increased by 120%, according to investing.com. Now, in general terms, the best capital growth has been the smaller capital cities or the more affordable regional areas of Australia. The top result was described as rest of Tasmania, which means Tasmania outside the capital city Hobart, or what we call regional Tasmania, where the established median house price rose from $169,000 20 years ago to $449,000 in the middle of 2024. The best capital city performers were also some of our nation's most affordable throughout the period, with Adelaide, Hobart and Brisbane taking out the top 3 city rankings. Pippa comments that property markets are not linear, rather price growth occurs at various points over time. Hobart, for example, has experienced a softening in prices over the past 3 years, but nevertheless its house price has almost tripled since 2004, up 193% in 20 years. Adelaide and Brisbane have both had very strong markets in the past 2 years, but have had long periods of flatlining prices throughout the past 2 decades. And it reflects the reality that real estate consumers get the best results through long-term ownership. And PIPA Chair Nicola McDougall says property owners should always adopt a long-term mindset. But PIPA research indicates many investors don't follow that philosophy. PIPA's 2024 annual investor sentiment survey found that 61% of investors who sold in the past year had had a holding period of less than 10 years, and 17% of those investors who sold indicated they'd owned the property for less than 3 years. So, the rankings from the PIPA research on capital growth over the past 20 years Australia-wide are number 1, regional Tasmania, number 2, Adelaide, number 3, Hobart, number 4, Brisbane, in 5th place, regional Victoria, and number 6, Perth. Sydney ranked 7th and Melbourne 11th. Once again, disproving one of real estate's greatest myths, that you get the best capital growth in the biggest cities and that prime outperforms affordable. And finally, the worst performers were Darwin and the rest of Northern Territory. But even the remote markets of the Northern Territory achieved a doubling of property values over 20 years.